Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless host, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Fridays, wherever you may be across this great country. I think Derrick Henry is still running. If you are going to be gambling on sports this weekend, you need to go check out my guys at sportsbookreview.com. That's the line on the wall behind me here on the banner, sportsbookreview.com. You'll get the best number anywhere. I am excited it's Friday. I hope you guys are excited it's Friday. It finally is Friday. We got a bunch to get to, but before we get to that, it's also the holiday season. And if you're anything like me, you look at your credit card every couple of weeks and you say, my God, how in the world did we spend all of the money that we spent? I didn't even know that person, and now we got buying Christmas presents for them. My wife spends money like a drunken sailor. There was a time when my credit card bill would pile up and I wouldn't be able to pay it off every single month. I have been there. I have lived that life. If you are living that life right now, there's nothing wrong with living that life. A lot of you will at some point in your lives, but you have bought a home. Why not go ahead and wipe out all of your credit card debt in one fell swoop? And you will be well on your way with my guy Ryan Kelly at thehomeloanexpert.com to put your house in financial order. I'll send you a copy of my autographed book. Here you go, kids. Here you go, kids. Republicans buy sneakers too, and you can be well on your way to saving a bundle. thehomeloanexpert.com. Wipe out all of your credit card debt in one fell swoop and get a great new mortgage, 3 or 4%. You will be glad that you did. Somebody just said, I just happened to glance over, new DBAP shirt. We have a lot of new shirts that are up at outkick.com. I haven't worn this one very much, but yes, this is a DBAP-inspired shirt. Go check it out, and I hope all of you will get rolling with me here. All right, we got to start off with what happened last night. Derrick Henry stole the Jacksonville Jaguars' soul. I used to hear from Jacksonville fans a lot. They would come to me and they would say things like, Blake Bortles is so much better than Marcus Mariota. Nobody is going to be able to stop Blake Bortles now that he's on fire. And I used to hear from him, our defense is unstoppable. We are going to be a juggernaut for years to come. Haven't heard a lot of that. Duval! That's what they sounded like. They sounded like they didn't have any balls that had dropped when they were playing against the Titans last night. Instead of saying Duval, they sounded like this. Duval! And that's because Derrick Henry, as he was running down the field, grabbed their balls and squeezed until they said, we relent, we submit, we quit. I've never seen one player own a football field like I saw Derrick Henry own the Jacksonville Jaguars last night. Duval! Jacksonville Jaguars got dominated by Derrick Henry. That 99-yard touchdown run. My son, my 8-year-old's favorite player is Derrick Henry. We were watching it at home. My house came undone when Derrick Henry made that 99-yard touchdown run. It was pure bedlam in my house. That's one of the greatest runs in the history of the NFL. Period. Now, you can argue it's not the greatest, but there's only been 2 99-yard touchdown runs ever. This and Tony Dorsett back in 1983. So it's a pretty rare occurrence. And I have never seen anybody in a modern-day NFL run like that, pure beast-like for 99 yards, just throwing people off left and right. I mean, that was unbelievable. And then for the second run of 54 yards, we've never seen that before. Derrick Henry went 17 carries for 238 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Duval! I love that stupid Duval chant. Duval! You guys got your ass kicked. I honestly think the Jacksonville Jaguars should have to move to London. I'm not sure they should be allowed to play another football game in America after Duval got their ass kicked like that. Utter destruction. It's impossible to get your ass beat worse than the Jacksonville Jaguars did. And this team in Jacksonville is fundamentally broken. If you question it, ask yourself this. Why were the Jags talking trash on 4th down down 30-9 after they'd already given up 240 yards rushing to Derrick Henry and 4 touchdowns. Tom Coughlin has to clean house. I mean, you got to trade Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey was nowhere to be found on that 99-yard touchdown run. Duval! He isn't anywhere near the ball. Didn't make an effort at all to go after the ball. Didn't make an effort in any way to try to stop Derrick Henry. And on that 54-yard touchdown run, he didn't keep his outside contained. He came right outside, right inside, and let Derrick Henry go outside. By the way, Derrick Henry, I think in general, doesn't get enough attention for what a physical freak of a human being he is. You know, he's the fastest speed that anybody has hit on a touchdown run this year. Derrick Henry is 6'3", 250 pounds, and he was moving at 21.74 miles per hour, according to NFL Next Gen Stats, which is the fastest that any touchdown run on a handoff has happened this year in the NFL. I mean, that guy is physically supreme in a way that I've never seen before. Now, the challenge with Derrick Henry, as always, has been that Derrick Henry is a home run hitting tailback who looks like he should be a consistent 3.5 yard on every carry guaranteed back. Does that make sense to you? Even at Alabama, he's the kind of guy who would go for 0, go for 1, go for 2 yards, then go for 50. Go for 0, go for 2, go for 1. And the challenge the Titans have had with Derrick Henry is they just haven't been able to run him enough because they run him so predictably that they hand off on first down and he gets a yard, and then they hand off on second down and he gets a yard, and it's always 3rd and 8. He hasn't had more than 18 carries in a game this year. And so prior to this, by the way, this is an amazing stat coming into the game, the props, Derrick Henry over-under in this game was 32.5 yards, and he went for 238. Talk about an unbelievable dunking on a number. That's extraordinary, but it speaks to the challenges that Derrick Henry has had in general with trying to figure out exactly where he's going to be on the Titans' offensive flow chart. If he can perform like this, and he should be fresh, the Titans, I believe, have a really good chance of winning the next 3. If the Titans beat the Giants on the road, then they beat the Redskins, and there's no way on earth they should lose to the Redskins, and then they beat the Colts, they'll be in the playoffs at 10-6, pretty much guaranteed. I think that it is a decent chance that it happens. I think if the Titans beat the Giants Sunday, a week from Sunday, they will be into the playoff because I think they'll win both their games at home. So far, the only loss the Titans have at home is the Baltimore Ravens. So it's hard to predict exactly what the Titans will do, but I think they have a pretty good chance. They beat the Colts twice last year, by the way. They haven't ever beaten Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck has got a Nick Saban-like dynasty running against the Tennessee Titans, but I think the Titans would have a lot more to play for, and I think they would be able to win that game. So that is what happened last night between the Jags and the Titans. Duval is dead, and they should have to send the Jacksonville Jaguars to London. Honestly, I like the city of Jacksonville. The Jaguars would be so much more interesting if they were based in London. They really would. Jags have to redo everything. I think they have to trade Jalen Ramsey. They're going to have to pull a Blake Bortles, a Brock Osweiler style deal with Blake Bortles, where they just give somebody draft picks to try to take away that contract because they paid him way too much money. And I think it by far makes the most sense for them to just redo their entire roster. They got to draft a quarterback in the first round. They looked like they were so close to competing for a championship, and now they are 1-8 in their last 9 games, and that locker room is toxic. They're trying to trade Dante Fowler to the Rams. They've tried to get everybody out. It's just not working. So that was Thursday Night Football. Any questions about that? It's interesting to think about where they might go, where Jacksonville might go. Again, I feel pretty good about the Titans winning their last 3. We'll see. Regardless, I think they're going to play significant December football, and they're basically in the playoffs now. They have to win every game. I think they have to get to 10-6, and they've left themselves no margin for error. So we'll see whether or not they can do it against the Giants. If they can do it against the Giants, they'll definitely beat the Redskins, and then it'll come down to how things go against the Colts in the final week of the season. All right, people are asking me about Hugh Freeze. Let me answer on Hugh Freeze. I wrote this in my mailbag, so I already addressed it, but I probably should have put it in the topic list as well. Hugh Freeze going to take over at Liberty. He just had his introductory press conference. I think he's going to come on Outkick next week. So I have texted with him to get him to come on with us. I believe the SEC did not want Hugh Freeze in the conference. They wanted him to go elsewhere first. They were going to make it difficult on Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, anybody who tried to hire him. I think it's a great hire for Liberty, who is Turner Gill had to relieve him, had to leave the job because of his wife's health. I think Hugh Freeze will go to Liberty. I think he'll win 7 or 8 games pretty quickly. I think he'll score a lot of points, and he'll get a major college football game almost immediately. Some people are all fired up, and maybe this is because I was raised in Southern Baptist Church, Southern Baptist faith. They're like, oh, Liberty's a religious university. How in the world could they hire Hugh Freeze? Well, let me just give you a little bit of a lesson here if you're not raised in the Southern Church. The Southern Church is about forgiveness. The Southern Church does not presume that you are going to be perfect in the way that you live your life. It presumes that when you fail, you are going to rise up and try to be a better human being. So the fact some people are like, oh, why in the world is Liberty hiring Hugh Freeze? I think it actually makes perfect sense that Liberty would hire Hugh Freeze because the Southern faith in particular that was Bill Clinton was a part of, Jimmy Carter was a part of, the Southern faith that I was raised in as a Baptist in a Southern Baptist church is about believing in the power of redemption and forgiveness. It's not that you're going to be perfect. It's not that when you fail, you are going to be judged eternally for the mistakes that you have made. It's that when you fall, you can learn from your falling and you can redeem and be forgiven for your failing. So I actually think if you look at it from a Liberty University perspective, Hugh Freeze is actually the perfect guy to coach at Liberty. He embodies the gospel that they sell every single day. So for people who don't understand and are like, oh, religious people are such hypocrites, I understand that argument, but frankly, I think it's a lack of understanding and comprehension of the underlying tenets of the religion that would lead you to embrace that perspective. Religious people, the ones that I grew up with anyway, never have believed that everybody is perfect. In fact, they begin with the opposite belief. They believe that man and woman are eternally flawed and that the goal of life is to aspire to a higher level of behavior and understanding and comprehension. Now, I'm not a personally incredibly religious person. It's not like I run around evangelizing for any particular religion. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're agnostic. I don't care atheistic, whatever you are. It doesn't matter to me at all. I don't get worked up in other people's religion. But I do understand that particular aspect of religion very well. And so that's why I feel like I kind of totally understand. I totally understand the move that Liberty is making in hiring Hugh Freeze. And I think he is going to win at a really, really high level at Liberty. I think he'll win at such a high level that he'll be there a year or two, and then he will get a major college job. So I think the SEC is happy that Hugh Freeze is going to Liberty, that he's not going to be there. I can't speak to what the ACC's perspective was on Hugh Freeze or what Florida State is going to do there. Let me also address this. And I just wrote about it in my mailbag. And I've got so many people out there that are chirping me when I scroll through my mentions. They're like, how come you're not talking a lot about Kendall Briles at Tennessee? Kendall Briles, the offensive coordinator at Houston, is interviewing evidently with Tennessee. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, how come you're not complaining? How come you're not protesting against this? And first of all, let me just give distinctions. I think one of the great problems that exists in modern American society is everybody has access to a voice and very few ability to distinguish what the average intelligence of that voice is. And one of the things that we got going on every day, all day long, is people are trying to apply precedent based on prior opinions and not smart enough to understand that things are not similar, right? Okay, so here is my perspective on this in general. If you happen to believe that Greg Schiano and Kendall Briles are the same, frankly, I question your ability to have a highly functioning brain. First of all, the stature and status and responsibility of a coordinator is much less significant than a head coach. Tennessee fans did not want Greg Schiano to be the head coach of the University of Tennessee because they did not think that he was going to be a good coach and because they didn't trust the administration that was making the decisions about the coaches. Also, there was a concern that Schiano was another Butch Jones, that his personality would be a poor fit in Knoxville, and there's a fundamental distrust of the Haslam family and their responsibility and role in deciding who the head coaches were going to be. So, there was a rebellion partly based on Schiano and partly based on Schiano's background, which is valid, to ask, do you want to have a guy who is connected to the biggest scandal in the history of college athletics as your head football coach? Very valid perspective. Kendall Briles is already the offensive coordinator at FAU, and he's now the offensive coordinator at Houston, and he stayed behind at Baylor. So I don't see these as being remotely similar positions. Furthermore, Kendall Briles hasn't been hired. So we don't even know if he's going to be the next coordinator at Tennessee. I don't know if he'd be a good fit or not. I don't have a strong position on Kendall Briles. My concern in general is just that this is completely a different situation and people don't understand. So you can go read about it if you want a detailed analysis of why I don't think these two situations are very similar. I would encourage you to go to Outkick, to the mailbag today, to where I just wrote. But let me run through this really quickly, okay? First, Tennessee hasn't hired him. So there's a reason why I haven't given an opinion strongly one way or the other. I don't really have that strong of an opinion. Second, Briles was never fired by Baylor and left in good standing at the university. He's been an offensive coordinator already, and he's still a coordinator. Third, there's a massive difference between being a coordinator and a head coach. Fourth, why didn't everybody protest when he was hired at FAU in Houston? I don't understand why it's okay for him to be a coordinator at FAU in Houston, but suddenly he goes to Tennessee and it's unacceptable. That doesn't make sense to me. Fifth, if you are opposed to Kendall Briles, is it your position that no one should ever be able to coach in college football again who was on the coaching staff at Baylor? If that is your position, why haven't people been obsessively protesting Arizona State hiring Phil Bennett, who was the defensive coordinator under Art Briles during all that time? Sixth, and I've said this on this show and I've said it on my site, I think Art Briles got scapegoated. There's a reason why Baylor paid him tens of millions of dollars to leave. I think Art Briles should be able to coach football again. I've said that for a while. I believe he was scapegoated. And finally, I always apply a talent versus problems test. I think Kendall Briles probably is more talented than his problems are. But that's not my decision to make. That's somebody else. So I would encourage you to go read it. I want to talk about Kevin Hart. I want to talk about Kevin Hart right now before I go any further. I don't know if you have been out there where there is the uproar and outrage that existed surrounding Kevin Hart's selection for the Academy Awards because people went through his old tweets and decided that they were homophobic or anti-gay or whatever you want to say about them. We have got to stop judging people in modern day eras based on the worst thing that they have ever done or said. And also, in particular, we've got to stop judging comedians on the standard that we judge everybody else. I am opposed. Let me be straightforward on this. I am directly opposed to going through old tweets of anyone and deciding that based on something they said a decade ago, they aren't eligible to do something today. Period. I said this about the Guardians of the Galaxy guy. I love Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. I don't care what the guy's politics are. I don't care what he tweeted. I care how good his movie is. I think that he should be able to continue to make Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because he did such a good job on Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. I'm not a huge Kevin Hart comedy fan. I don't get to see that many movies now because I got kids and I got so many jobs. I don't have time to do very much. But I think he probably would have been a pretty good Academy Award host. And I have this same issue with Kevin Hart that I do with Jimmy Kimmel. I loved The Man Show back in the day with Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel. I thought it was hysterical. I still think I would laugh at The Man Show if I watched it today. I don't think we should be in the business of judging a comedian based on whether somebody is offended by a joke. I just don't. I don't think that I should get judged by the standard of, is somebody offended by the opinion that Clay Travis just said? I think that everybody should be considered in the totality of their overall opinions over a long career. And over that totality, Kevin Hart's talented. He would be a good Academy Award host. I think it's absurd. I think it's absurd that Kevin Hart has been pulled off of the Academy Awards. I also think that he should never apologize. I think he can say, look, the jokes that I made in 2010 are different than the jokes that I would make today. All comedians evolve. The opinions that I had when I was 24 are different than the opinions that I have now that I'm 44 or 34 or everything else. Everybody evolves as they age. What we are arguing is there are opinions you can have which don't allow you to be employed in the later day, and I just don't understand that. I think that's scary. I think that is fundamentally anti-American. I think that is fundamentally anti-First Amendment. To judge somebody and decide that they don't have the right to have an opinion anymore. I also ask this question. I would just ask this question. When did we enter an age where, and this, by the way, is why I would defend Howard Stern and everybody else in the creative industry. We have entered into an age when people who don't like someone try to argue that other people who do like someone shouldn't have the ability to watch or listen to them. Okay, and I think this is an important part. I wrote about this a lot in my book. If you enjoy this discussion, I would encourage you to go read it in my book. If you don't like Kevin Hart, don't watch. If you think Kevin Hart shouldn't be allowed to host the Oscars, don't watch the Oscars. Vote with your eyes. Don't try and tell someone that they shouldn't be allowed to have a job because of something that they tweeted as a joke years and years ago. And so I think this standard is fundamentally broken. I think that it is nonsensical the way that the policies are being applied today. And I think that we have to stop allowing losers to dictate the decisions that winners make. And what I mean by that is people are always going to be angry. And do you know who the most angry people are? Losers. Losers, losers, losers. Do you know? Think about the kind of person who gets on social media and pours through somebody's tweets from 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever else it is in order to try to get offended in retroactive data. Nobody does that who's a normal, successful, healthy person. I feel the same way, and I wrote about this for the people who go back through old athlete tweets. And they're like, oh my God, somebody used a song lyric. Remember Dante DiVincenzo? Guy goes out, balls out, wins the game for Villanova. Number one story when he comes off is that he retweeted a lyric from Meek Mill when he was 14 years old, and a white kid can't do that because it had the N-word in it. I mean, come on. What kind of world are we living in where we are enabling and encouraging and rewarding people to go back through old tweets and decide that what somebody said back then makes them unable to have an opinion going forward in any kind of public forum? Here's the other thing I would say. Here's the other thing I think that is very important that everybody needs to gather around and listen to. Just because somebody said it doesn't mean that an employer agrees with it. One of the fundamental flaws that I have with the way our society has evolved. Remember how back when we were kids at the end of the show, it used to say, the opinions expressed herein represent the talent and not the network or whatever else it was. Why can't the individual have an opinion that's different than the company? And when you see me talk, do you think, oh, that's what Outkick the Coverage thinks? Maybe, because I own 100% of my company. But all I speak for is myself. I don't even speak for my household. At least half of what I say, my wife is like, no, I disagree. You're wrong about that. Every individual only speaks for the individual. This idea we have created that you are not allowed to have ever said anything that's remotely controversial is, to me, fundamentally wrong. And you know what? The American public rejects it. You know why the American public rejects it? I want you to think about this for a minute. Do you remember the Today Show clip that went viral right before the election where Donald Trump said, you just walk right up to him and grab him by the pussy? Got so much attention. You know who was talking to him during that conversation? Billy Bush. Do you know what happened to Billy Bush? He lost his job. The Today Show fired him. I think his marriage broke up. His life is in a shambles. Do you know what happened to Donald Trump? He got elected president of the United States. Do you know why that distinction exists? Because the American public understood that Donald Trump was speaking hyperbolically, and they said this is not going to be the difference maker on whether we vote for him for president or not, because as a massive group of people, the American public, much like a jury, has better wisdom than any one individual. And so Donald Trump's referendum on whether his behavior was acceptable or unacceptable went out to the entire nation, and the nation voted that they were still okay with Donald Trump being president of the United States. NBC voted, and they said Billy Bush can't be on the Today Show anymore. So on the one hand, the guy who actually speaks on that tape, Donald Trump, was capable of being elected president of the United States, but the guy who was standing next to him, Billy Bush, was not able to actually continue to appear on the Today Show. I would submit that the reason for that is because many of our corporate leaders in the world of media are getting things wrong that the American public gets right. In particular, if the American public right now were voting on whether Kevin Hart should still be able to host the Academy Awards, he would easily win election by the popular vote, and people would say yes. Because in our own lives, we all understand that you don't judge somebody by one particular sentence when they have spoken oceans of sentences in their life. You do not in your own life decide that you are going to kick the uncle out of your family because he said something inappropriate at Thanksgiving. You still love your uncle, your crazy uncle that everybody's family has. But if your crazy uncle got on Twitter and he tweeted some of the stuff that he has said for the last 40 years at family gatherings, he would be a social media pariah. You don't judge your crazy uncle based on the craziest thing he says at Thanksgiving. You judge him based on the totality of his life. The American public is good and decent and forgiving as a whole. The American elite media companies are not. They have created a dynamic where it's easier to run and hide than it is to stand up and say, you know what? I didn't necessarily agree with that particular statement, but I still think he or she is a good person. And so we're going to continue to employ them. It happens all the time. Variety of angles, left, right. Look at Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly misspoke while talking stupidly about blackface. NBC threw her to the wolves and fired her, ended up paying her $69 million to leave. I think Megyn Kelly and Kevin Hart are very similar, even though they might represent different perspectives on the political spectrum. I think that Kevin Hart should be able to host the Academy Awards. I think the host of the Academy Awards can have said and done things at some point in their life that other people find to be offensive. Let the public decide. I come back again and again to that analogy between Billy Bush and Donald Trump. The tape goes out. It's all Donald Trump talking. Billy Bush's career is over. He's no longer allowed to be on the Today Show. Donald Trump is elected president of the United States. It's because the public is more forgiving than the media is. They understand that you can't judge somebody based on one thing. And by the way, it occurs everywhere, across the political spectrum. Bill Clinton gets a blowjob from an intern in the Oval Office, and people take a step back and they say, you know what? I wish he hadn't gotten that blowjob from that intern. But I don't think that our election should be canceled out because he got a blowjob from an intern, because he's doing a pretty good job as president otherwise. We all judge people much more lenient in real life than social media does. And we certainly don't judge everyone based on every tweet that they've ever sent. Now, I don't agree with a lot of the things that Kevin Hart said, but he's a comedian. He's trying to make people laugh. Sometimes when you're trying to make people laugh, you say things that don't come out the right way. The Comedy Club is a laboratory. He's using Twitter as an open mic. He's developing and refining his voice. That's how he ended up in the talented position that he is now. He's not being hired based on what he did in 2011. He's being hired based on what he's done as a professional in the eyes of Hollywood. That is my position. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to defend everybody who gets attacked in this, whether it's somebody like Kevin Hart, whether it's somebody like Megyn Kelly, whether it's the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy. I believe this is fundamentally wrong. America as a country is getting this wrong. We are failing when it comes to how to understand and implement modern rules for social media. All right. ESPN has apologized for Woke Center. This is amazing because basically ESPN has acknowledged that everything I ever said was correct. This is a story that went up yesterday, and I'm going to read some of the quotes from this story. The reason why I'm addressing this on this show is because so many people at ESPN and in their PR department and everywhere else, they attacked me. They attacked me on a regular basis, and they said, hey, Clay Travis, you are wrong. All of the arguments you are making are incorrect. There is no basis to them whatsoever. And then the headline of this story is, ESPN returned SportsCenter to its roots. I think we miscalculated a little bit. I'm just going to read a few of these quotes. A few of the quotes that show up here. Last year, SportsCenter was suffering as the ratings collapsed. They brought in a man named Norby Williamson who used to be in charge of SportsCenter, and he said, I think we miscalculated. The perception became that you could just roll a talent out there and it doesn't matter what he or she is saying, that the content didn't matter. I just never believed that. They have now gotten 8 straight months of increased ratings. And it turns out that people like sports. It turns out that people like sports. I know this is shocking. Norby Williamson says, when people whine or complain, it's not the way it used to be. It's all crap. You get information about your customers and adjust what you're doing. I like where we're at right now. This is a big, long article. I tweeted it out, and there's all sorts of details in there. We fell into that trap a little bit. We de-emphasized the video and the storytelling. They have gotten back to actually giving what people expect. Sage Steele had a good quote here. I think we've recommitted to what people expect. Just as I would have watched the CBS Evening News show with Dan Rather, I just want my information. This is the same thing, just sports. I'm like the fan, Norby Williamson said. Never forget, I'm the person you have to serve. Let's not overthink SportsCenter. The goal is to get more people to watch the today than watch yesterday. And he also says that it is important to be able to serve the audience. This is, I think, significant. ESPN attacked me for years for having a couple of big philosophies, big hypotheses that ESPN had abandoned the average sports fan in favor of politics. And that's why I said they had gone to Woke Center. And you know what? Turns out I was correct. All the data supports me. I was 100% correct. Not the kind of guy to brag or draw attention to myself, but I'm a genius. Congratulations to ESPN for now coming back around to the arguments that I have made for a long time. Here is my book. The argument has been made in here. I'm sure everybody at ESPN has read this book because the minute it started coming out, it's amazing. President of ESPN, Jimmy Pitaro, CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, they all started parroting the same arguments that I made in my book. They recognized that I was right. It's a long time in the wilderness. I was getting ripped on a regular basis by all the quote-unquote media elites. Oh, this guy Clay Travis, he doesn't have any idea what he's talking to. He doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. Guess what? Truth is, I knew exactly what I was doing. I am pretty good at my job. And so, thank you for watching. I hope you guys have fantastic Fridays. My name is Clay Travis. I think I hit everything I told you that I was going to hit. What I would ask of you is this, as you go out today. First of all, if you like this show, share it. We're on YouTube. I'm on Fox Sports Radio, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern every day. I'm on television, 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern every day on FS1. About to give you some gambling picks in about 45 minutes. But become soldiers for free speech on social media. Regardless of the race, the gender, or the political orientation of the individual involved, stand up and fight for people like Kevin Hart. Stand up and fight for people like Megyn Kelly. Don't believe the worst in people. Believe that sometimes good people say things that you might not agree with, that you might even be offended by. But being offended isn't wrong. Being offended is perfectly normal and part of life. You're not going to like everything. Just because you're offended doesn't mean something shouldn't exist. We have bought into this concept in the country of being of the belief that if somebody raises their hand and says, I'm offended, you have to somehow make right with them. My statement to you would be this. Every time somebody says they're offended, respond, I'm offended that you're offended. They have no idea what to do or what to say next because they have learned, based on the way the media responds, that being offended is a one-way street. That you can't go both directions on the offensiveness highway. Guess what? When you say, I'm offended that you're offended, they have no idea how to respond. Because they think being offended is their trump card and it somehow conveys power to them. For the media executives who are watching this, or the people who work in the world of media, never apologize for sharing your real opinion. Don't ever apologize. We have entered into an apology culture. You're not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to say the right thing. But when people come for you, square up and throw punches back at them. It's time for a battle of ideas to actually take place. It's time for real, normal, ordinary, good thinking, decent people to start to fight the losers. Stand up to the pussies. Let them know they are not going to win, that we no longer believe in outrage, I'm offended culture. We have to win this battle. I think it's the most important one that's going on in the field of American popular culture right now. I'm Team Kevin Hart. I'm Team Megyn Kelly. I'm Team the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy. Creative people are not always perfect, but ultimately they deserve the right to continue to create. That's what America is founded on. The idea that we can all be better every single day. I'm flawed, just like Hugh, just like all of you. I make mistakes every day, but every morning I wake up and my goal is the same. Be a little bit better than I was the day before. Team DBAP, boys and girls. DBAP, although we gotta be careful, sometimes you gotta SBAP too. I'm Clay Travis. Kisses to all of you. Have fantastic weekends. This has been Outkick the Show.